Welcome to Workplace Psychology with Dr. Martha Greidick. I'm Dr. Martha Greidick, and for those of you who have been with me for a while, you know that I am an industrial and organizational psychologist. This podcast focuses on all workplace psychology related topics, but of course, many of them are applicable to situations outside of the workplace. I always encourage you to take what makes sense to you, apply it to your life in the way that makes sense to you, and simply discard the rest. While historically this podcast has been available in an audio format only, available on all of the major platforms, including iHeartRadio, Amazon, and Apple, we are also now available on YouTube in a video format. So, whichever format you prefer, I invite you to join me for the weekly podcast. Today's topic of conversation is mindfulness. What is mindfulness? Let's start by defining the concept. Mindfulness, in the simplest of terms, is the ability of being present and being aware, being present in the moment and being aware of what is happening around us, what is happening in our surroundings. And although historically, when the idea of mindfulness has been presented, it was much more likely to be thought of as something to be discussed in terms of our personal lives. It is no longer limited to our personal lives. The idea of mindfulness has made its way into the world of business. In other terms, mindfulness is no longer only for personal use. And if you think about it, it makes sense. The benefits of mindfulness are many, and they can apply to our personal lives as well as our lives at the workplace. Since this podcast focuses on workplace psychology, this episode will examine some of the benefits that we can identify at the workplace as they relate to mindfulness. Mindfulness is good for both the employee and the employer. So let's start there. So it is everybody's business. It is in everybody's best interest to listen and engage in mindful practices. So if mindfulness pertains to being present and being aware, it also means that we are not distracted while we're being mindful. We are not paying attention to other things. We're not checking our phone and talking to someone else and looking at something else. We are present in the moment. So if you want to clarify further of what mindfulness is, think about the opposite of what mindfulness isn't. So mindfulness is being in the moment, which means that mindfulness is not being distracted. Mindfulness is being aware of what's going on around us and what surrounds us, which means mindfulness is not being oblivious to what is around us and what's going on in our immediate environment. One of the biggest and potentially most important benefits of practicing mindfulness is decreasing stress. When you think about all of the things that pull us in every direction, in 100 different directions, all of the stimuli and all of the stressors and all of the things that demand our attention. When we are being mindful, we are essentially saying no to all of those things, therefore eliminating all of those stimuli, all of those potential stressors. So it makes sense that when we effectively eliminate all of that, we are potentially eliminating those things that may cause us stress. And whether those things, those stressors, those stimuli are external, meaning they come from other people or the environment or situations, or whether they are self-induced, so things like checking our phone, not paying attention, looking at our watch and doing multitasking and all kinds of things like that. Regardless of the source, when we effectively and purposefully eliminate that kind of stimuli, we are helping ourselves to be in the moment that is less stressful. So decreasing stress is definitely a potential benefit of practicing mindfulness. And of course, that is good at the office as well as outside of the workplace. Something that is very closely related to stress, of course, is burnout. We have heard a lot about burnout, burnout at the workplace, burnout in our personal lives. And practicing mindfulness is another way, similarly to decreasing stress. When we practice mindfulness, we can also decrease the likelihood of burnout because we are shifting our focus from everything that's stressing us out, everything that we have to do, everything that's tugging at us in the wrong way, so to speak, and bringing our focus into the present and becoming aware of the moment. Again, very similar to how that would work on decreasing stress. When we practice mindfulness, we can very easily help ourselves with burnout and decreasing the likeliness of experiencing burnout. That is music to our ears since burnout has been in the news quite a bit over the last several years because it is a real problem. It is a real concern at the workplace. It's a concern for the employer and the employee alike. So anything that can help us to decrease the likelihood of burnout is good news indeed. And that means that practicing mindfulness is another good idea when it comes to combating burnout. Mindfulness has been associated with improved productivity. And this is another one that is so logical, makes so much sense if you just think about it. When you practice mindfulness, you are forgoing the distractions, the potential stressors, and you're shifting your focus into the now, into the present moment. And in some sense, really, you are refining your focus. You're zeroing in. Your focus becomes more laser-like rather than a scattered light. So when we practice mindfulness, increased productivity is definitely on the list of benefits. Practicing mindfulness can also drive creativity and innovation. When we take the time to focus our minds, be in the present, let go of the distractions and the potential stressors, we essentially free our minds to be creative and think outside the box. When we do that, that's when innovation and creativity really have an opportunity to come through and to shine. It's easy to understand how practicing mindfulness, where we are in the moment and focused on what's in front of us rather than being distracted, can help to promote creativity and innovation. Practicing mindfulness can also improve cooperation and collaboration at the workplace as well as outside of the workplace. Think about it this way. When we practice mindfulness, which can lead to decreased stress, decreased likelihood of burnout, increased productivity, it's only logical that cooperation and collaboration among employees and also between employees and management can really improve. When we're not distracted, stressed out, and burnt out, and when we are embracing our creativity and innovation, things like cooperation and collaboration can only benefit and improve. So the last benefit that I will mention in terms of the practice of mindfulness at the workplace is the likelihood that it can improve the workplace environment. And of course, the more people that practice mindfulness at the workplace, the more likely all of these benefits are to manifest within the workforce, within the environment, amongst the people. And of course, Employers are aware of this. Many employers are aware of it. This is why so many employers offer facilities that include meditation rooms on campus or in their office space. And some of them even dedicate specific time periods for meditation and mindfulness practice for their employees, trying to encourage this kind of practice because they understand that the benefits are many and important, and they are as good for the employees as they are for the organization in general. So, as today's episode comes to an end, let's do a quick review of the benefits that are associated with mindfulness. First and foremost, practicing mindfulness can help us to decrease stress. It can also help to decrease the likelihood of burnout. Practicing mindfulness can increase productivity. It can also drive creativity and innovation. Mindfulness can also improve cooperation and collaboration at the workplace. And finally, it can improve the workplace environment. As the week unfolds, I invite you to consider the practice of mindfulness in your own life. If this is something that you already engage in, consider the benefits. How has it affected you? How has it improved your experience and the experience of those around you? If you haven't engaged in focusing and actively practicing mindfulness, I encourage you to start this week. This is not a difficult practice. It's a matter of focusing, staying on point, being present, and being aware. And whether you are an employee or an employer, you can always lead by example and you can always encourage others to join you in a practice of mindfulness. That doesn't necessarily mean that you all sit around and practice mindfulness together, but what it does mean that you encourage others by example and by encouragement, direct encouragement, to engage in the concept, in the practice of mindfulness. Thank you for joining me today. Please subscribe to this podcast. I hope to see you again next time. Until then, I wish you joy and well being.